Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Bluegrass Roadshow. This is the first full-length interview that I've gotten the chance to conduct, so your support here today is greatly appreciated. I recently got the chance to sit down with Ryan Kelly and Silas Rhea, who play mandolin and fiddle for North Fork Crossing. This Bozeman-based band has just released their second studio album titled Portland Rose, which is one I've been enjoying so much that I decided to reach out and see what they had to say about it for themselves. In today's conversation, we go over the inception of the album, its inspirations and themes, as well as how the band got together, what the guys think of the current state of bluegrass, and so much more. If you haven't gotten the chance to, please check out our website at bluegrassroadshow.com, where you can find more information regarding this episode, as well as in-depth blog posts and an extensive calendar where you can find your next show. Without further ado, let's get into the interview. North Fork Crossing. So I guess we'll get going. I've had the chance to listen to the album quite a few times over, especially since having the idea of doing this. I thought I better study up on it a little bit, and I'm definitely enjoying it off the rip.
Oh, thanks.
I guess we'll start out. I was kind of curious. I was doing some reading just on you guys in general, and I had seen that. I was reading something on the Bluegrass Standard. I think they did an interview with you guys a few years back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I was checking that out. Then I happened to see that your guitarist and Ryan yourself originally met as kids at a fiddle camp.
That's right. Yeah, we met at Montana Fiddle Camp, and we're actually gearing up. I think Fiddle Camp starts like a week from today. So some of us were going to try and make it by, and then Cade is going to be an instructor there for the second week of their camp this year.
Awesome. Very cool.
So yeah, that place has had a huge influence on us, and it also happens to be what originally brought us together.
That's awesome. And so that's called the Montana Fiddle Camp?
Yep.
Yeah. And I grew up going to that as a kid too, and met Cade there.
And did you also grow up in the Montana area as well, Silas?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in Helena.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ryan's from here in Bozeman, and Cade from Missoula.
Very cool. I did see a few things that I was looking into that I thought were quite interesting. And that was in particular to you, Silas. Getting into, I saw that you were into also Calvin's fiddle camp early on as a kid.
I was, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I guess I was kind of interested in that. It's a little bit more traditional. But what was it like coming up, kind of playing with Calvin and going to that camp for quite a few years?
No, yeah, that had a huge impact on my playing as a kid, because at the time I wasn't taking lessons or anything. And so kind of the only instruction on the fiddle I was getting was these camps in the summer.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think like the Canadian fiddle tradition is like, slightly different than it is down here. And so I think playing with like all those people growing up definitely gave me an interesting like approach and perspective on the fiddle that I wouldn't have necessarily got.
And how far north is that in comparison to where you grew up at?
At least Calvin's camp, I went to a couple of camps up in Canada, but his camp is up in I think it's St. Edwards, Alberta.
Okay.
And it's a few hours north of Edmonton.
That's what I was thinking. It's a good haul.
Pretty good haul from here.
Absolutely. So that's cool that you were able to get out and do those.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No, it was cool. My grandma, she's a fiddle player, and so she took me to all those camps when I was young.
Awesome. I love hearing those kind of things.
Yeah.
I've been kind of thinking about something recently, and that kind of leads me into that thought is it seems to be there's kind of a divide right now, it seems, in a sense. I don't want to say a large divide, but kind of between the traditional and the more progressive scene. At one time it seemed like the progressive scene was always kind of on the outskirts, and if you weren't, playing traditional bluegrass, that wasn't bluegrass. But now we've seen, so many different variations and so many different bands doing their thing. I know you guys grew up kind of in more of those traditional circles and going to those camps, and now kind of mixing both. You know, your music has kind of that old sound, but you guys know how to kind of get out there and jam and kind of fit some of the bills that people are looking for right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's, the divide is interesting, and I think a lot of the old guys nowadays, I think, a lot of it is, like, what Billy's doing and how, he's bringing bluegrass to, like, such a big market and to so
Sure.
many different people. I think they're kinda starting to a lot of the old guys are starting to see that, and they're like, "Well, maybe this new grass stuff isn't so bad." Um, so I think that divide is getting better. There's still, a little bit of, button heads there.
It's interesting to look at. I feel like there's bands in our realm and or just younger bands in general. There does seem like there's a like I guess if you're looking at a bigger band who kind of does jam but also brings in traditional sides, I think that kind of branches out to the young bands and you kind of see where they lean towards. And like some bands are really lean into that heavy jam grass scene and people love it and come out and see it, but the people that are wanting the traditional music, it might be missing some of that. And then I feel like we lean slightly more to the traditional side and have like some folk inspiration and stuff. Um, but we also dabble in the jamming. So it's interesting like playing these festivals with these bands because there's you see the extremes on either end of like a trad grass band and like in the same vein of like what the Earls of Leicester were doing. And then you see like these crazy jam bands that it's like a jam band that happens to be playing bluegrass instruments. And I don't know, I think the cool part about it is there's opportunity where people that are just into one side of it get exposed to the other and maybe can find a love for that or pique their interest and they start looking back. They'll see Billy Strings, but then they'll see Tony Rice and the Bluegrass Album Band and kind of work down the rabbit hole and they might get bit by the bluegrass bug, the more trad stuff.
I think that's definitely a great way of looking at it. I think some of these guys, obviously Billy kind of being at the top of the game right now, and everybody else in between, is definitely opening up a lot of doors for bluegrass music and bringing in people far and wide. And I'm seeing that myself as more and more people, like you said, are especially digging into Tony Rice, and I think you have Billy kind of giving a lot of homage to these guys by playing their songs and even, mentioning where they come from on stage. And I think that education is always a good thing to kind of engage the listener a bit more. A lot of these people coming out to these big concerts might have just, heard the guy on the radio or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
On the flip
That's
side, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's fun. It's funny to see depending on what kind of crowd we're playing to. If I'm sometimes we'll play a song and we'll say, "All right, here's a song we learned from the New Kentucky Colonels." And if you're playing to a more trad scene, people perk up and they're like, "Oh, nice." And then a lot of these younger crowds are like, whatnot. They're like, "What did he say? Who?"
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good that you guys are able to have that inspiration and you know where this music comes from and able to keep that alive while making your own stuff as well.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
it's cool the opportunities like Silas at that Canadian fiddle camp and us, going to the Montana fiddle camp. We were exposed to like that early music and where it comes from at a young age. And even going back now that we're like playing in a bluegrass band, I feel like I still just like it's almost the more you learn about where these songs came from, the less you know. It's kind of endless and there's so many tunes and so many players and styles and really, I think it's a cool part of kind of history and music history that you can dive into and really learn a lot of good stuff from kind of the greats and yeah, take it into our music, into our writing, and try and keep sharing this style of music.
absolutely. I think I completely agree with you. I mean,
You mentioned the bluegrass bug earlier. I fully got bit by that thing a few years back. I mean, I grew up in Kentucky and always was around bluegrass music, but never quite followed it, and um, until I got a little bit older and graduated high school and figured out what I liked. And yeah, like you said, once you figure one thing out, it just leads to more. The rabbit hole just gets bigger the deeper you go down it.
Oh yeah. When I was young, my two older siblings that kind of got us involved with Montana Fiddle Camp, they were contest fiddle players. And my dad, he kind of got bitten by the bug, and he liked Tony Rice and David Grisman and whatnot. But he would play these Alison Krauss Union Station CDs in the car. And when I was a little kid, I would be like, "Dad, you got to turn that off." I could not stand it. I was like, "What are we listening to?" And then now we fast forward 20 years or whatever, and I'm like, "Hey, you got those CDs lying around somewhere?"
Oh, I
So
couldn't
it is
agree more.
funny. I mean, it's like something that a lot of people maybe are exposed to, but then it does like it really does kind of get you. It gets in your blood, and you're like, "Oh, I gotta dive into this."
Yeah, it's like a drug. When it gets you and when it clicks real good.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like bluegrass has showed me almost the way I learned to love bluegrass. It's given me a good approach to listening to other music, because I didn't really like bluegrass when I was a kid. And then there's stuff that I thought I didn't like, and I've kind of, tried to scratch beneath the surface of what music is out there. And I think it's cool to just not judge a book by a cover and in all genres of music. But I think I kind of learned that from bluegrass because it was this thing I thought I hated, had written off, and then all of a sudden it's consumed my life, and I'm like, this is awesome.
That's awesome. Uh I actually have a question right down here that's perfect for that. And I was kind of curious, maybe what you guys listen to outside of bluegrass, what some of your inspirations are there.
Oh yeah, man, that's a tough question. I feel like I bounce around a ton. I mean, what have I been listening to recently? I guess Silas and I both really love Neil Young and like kind of a lot of that generation of like singer-songwriter stuff. Bob Dylan. I've been liking there's this band, I think they're out of New York, they're called the Lemon Twigs. They're like this kind of 60s like sun-soaked sound rock band, but they're making this music right now and they've got like these crazy intricate harmonies and chord progressions. That's kind of been fascinating me. And then dip my toe in like the indie music world a little bit. I think like MJ Lenderman's kind of in the similar vein of like Neil Young, like just writing some really crazy artistic lyrics that are hard to decipher but are fun to listen to and cool, just like loud rock music almost. But I think we all bounce around
Yeah.
kinda all over, like, in the van, we'll be listening to Buck Owens and then listen to bluegrass for a while. This last trip, we ripped through a couple Cat Stevens records.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we listen to everything in the van. Fish, EDM,
Oh, yeah, our manager,
whatever.
Max, is huge jam band,
Okay.
and, like, he's got us all listening to and some of us, we like it more than others, and some of us put up with it, but he loves putting on, like, a Fish live show or, like,
Sure.
Widespread Panic or, like, what's the band like Lettuce and like these newer jam bands and Disco Biscuits, which a lot of that stuff is like it's really cool and impressive, and sometimes I just like I don't even know how to approach it, but it's cool. There's so many different styles of music and like all these people that have found their kind of niche and like in a similar way how we've dug into bluegrass music and are trying to learn learn that style, all these other bands have dug into these songwriters that have been around and like and their other styles of music, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think right now, it's kind of a crazy time to be alive. But in terms of music, man, we're in an era. that has a lot of great stuff coming out, and I also think kind of a great resurgence of music too. You know, bluegrass is seemingly more popular than it maybe has ever been. You know, I wasn't
Yeah.
obviously alive in past generations, but it seems to me like the following that are coming out to some of these bluegrass shows, you know, even smaller acts that are out there, you know, seem to be getting good crowds, and everybody's really enjoying it. So I think we're in a good time for music. That's for sure.
No, definitely. I think it's there's with all like new things with new generations, you know, whatever it might be, we kind of grew up in a big change of how people consume music. And I think there's great parts of it and there's maybe some parts of it that are not as good, but it's pretty incredible the access that we have, you know, you just type it in, it's at your fingertips. Pretty much any music that's ever been recorded,
Yeah, I mean,
you can just punch in and find, you know, it's not like you have to like, I remember growing up, you either had to, like, get a CD or you had to buy each song, you know, they're like 99 cents on Apple
yep,
Music on your iPod, and so it's like, I think there's a really cool side of it where you have, like, immediate access to all music, and then I think there's maybe the flip side of it is it's interesting, like, almost taking that for granted, you know, like, when you used to have to buy the record or the CD or even the individual song, you could kinda get to know those songs and albums a little more because you were limited on what you had to listen to. So I think some of those old bluegrassers, they had, like, a couple records that they could slow down and learn the songs on, and they would just learn it you know, they'd learn a record front and back, and
yep.
it's an interesting change, but I think a lot of it I mean, it's pretty incredible how lucky we are to just have the crazy access to music.
And it's all right at our fingertips. You can get onto you know, sites like Internet Archive and things like that, and you know, find old shows going back, you know, some of these Grateful Dead shows back into the '60s, and
Oh, yeah.
things like that. I know. Um, and also kind of with bluegrass music too, like you said, these guys got time to sit down and learn these songs, and I think you know, that's kind of the next evolution past, you know, the word of mouth. When these songs were written and traditional and passed on, you know, we kind of got into, all right, well, records and then CDs, and you know, things were limited. You only heard it on the radio whenever it came on, so you had to listen to it so you could try to remember what that lick sounded like, so you could
Yeah.
try doing it, you know, things like that. And I think that's why, if you kind of look back maybe into like the '80s and '90s in bluegrass, you see a lot of these bands doing a lot of the same tunes or different variations of the same tune, because you know the access wasn't as wide as it quite is today.
Yeah, like, going way back even, Silas and our banjo player Matt and I, we like playing they're definitely know a lot more of the tunes than I do, but we like going to, like, an old time jam and learning those songs, and those are kind of fun. They're like stepping back in time because a lot of times maybe only one person knows the tune, and you kinda learn it on the fly, and everybody's listening, and all of a sudden you got you know, ten fiddlers and a couple guitar players and banjo players that just learned a song and they're playing it for the next 10 minutes going around. And then everybody walks away and they might have learned 5 new tunes. And by the next day, they might only remember one of them. But it's cool that stuff like that still exists. And then the flip side is now I can record a Tony Rice lick on my phone and then put it in the app and slow it way down note by note and you know, really decipher and hear what he was playing and how he's doing it, which
Sure.
is a great resource. And I think it's why you see so many like young guitar players that can just like flat pick the hell out of these
Man,
tunes.
it's
'Cause they're
crazy
like,
right now.
yeah, there's some monster players just everywhere. I feel like I'm always caught on my heels, like, oh, I gotta practice. What am I doing?
Yeah, you got to keep up with it, or else you know, you'll fall behind. These guys are going quick.
They are.
That being said, what's the, you know, Montana bluegrass scene like today? And, you know, what are some, I guess, some of your other local peers that you guys might pick with?
Yeah, so I'd say the local scene, especially here in Bozeman, has been growing a lot. It's
Yeah,
cool to see. Like, there's 4. I think 4 different jams, like public jams that happen every week here in town. And there's lots of young people getting into it these days, which is really cool to see. Um, and I think it's gotten a lot better since even when I was a kid growing up in Helena. There was, I grew up going to the jam there, and it was me and a bunch of old guys. And
As
that's
usual.
yeah,
Silas's first band, I think he was 50 years younger than
yeah.
the other members.
I was in high school, and the rest of them were in their 60s.
Hey, and that shows in the music though. Listening to this album, that the fiddle licks that you've gotten in on it are exceptional. And you know how to slow things down or pick it back up. So hats off to those guys for keeping you going.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, there's also a lot of great bands coming up in Montana, and um, all sorts of genres. But there's quite a few other bluegrass bands that we hang out with here in Montana, and
Yeah, there's some great pickers. I mean, there's we're pretty good friends with um these guys that play with our friend Abby Webster, and she has a band. It's called Abby Webster in her imaginary band. But the guys in those band in her band play with like tons of different groups, and some of them travel all over with this band sire, and then they have like couple like pickup gigs that they do with this band called Scratch and Gravel. And but they're like, they're playing all these indie tunes, these folk songs and stuff, but then you get a dreadnought in their hand and a banjo or whatever it might be, and there's some really great pickers here, and it's fun to have them over or go meet at the jam down at the cider house or wherever it might be that night, and pick. And I think it's cool to have that community close because
Yeah.
it's pushing you to learn new songs, and you got people bringing in different influence from whoever they're listening to. It's like Xander and I were talking the other day. He'd been listening a lot to like Herschel Sizemore, Smanlin playing, and I'd been listening to a lot of like Roland White, and we're kind of like trading licks and like listening to the different styles. And so it's the community, I think overall is good. That's just one example, but there's lots of great pickers around here.
That's awesome. I definitely have been noticing from afar. Like I said earlier, I grew up down in Kentucky, but I currently reside in Michigan. That being said, I see that there's a bit of a good bluegrass going on in Montana. I'm seeing more and more festivals pop up. I have a little thing on my website that I do. It's kind of like a calendar. I've got you guys on there and plenty of other bands, but there's about
Oh, cool.
120 different bluegrass acts. A little bit, the little mix in there, some jam, a little couple of cool reggae guys, things I appreciate, but people I feel like in the bluegrass scene that could deserve a little spotlight. And everybody knows where Billy Strings is playing next, right? But it's hard to keep track with all of these. So I put together a little calendar along with a lot of festivals and camps, so people can go on there and just look by state or by date and find out what's kind of going on near them. And I've noticed the amount of stuff going on in Montana this summer seems to be quite a bit. Seems to be a good place if you like bluegrass music.
Yeah, we're happy to be a small part of it. We're just down the road from like a pretty legendary venue, Pine Creek Lodge, that gets a lot of big acts in for,
Yeah.
if you look at the capacity of the venue, sometimes you're like, man, that band's playing there, like
I've thought that.
the Crockett's playing there, whatever.
Yep.
But it's just, I mean, it's like at the gateway of Yellowstone National Park, and it's right on the Yellowstone River. It's beautiful. And we actually have the last couple of years attended, and then now we're hosting the Creekside Revival Festival
Cool. That's very cool.
at Pine Creek, and we were, kind of had a little meeting of the minds, and we're talking about the bands and stuff, getting the bands that could return to come back and what new bands we wanted to come. And so I think it's going to be cool to get a lot of these bands from all over out east. And
You guys got a good lineup right there for that. That's put together
it's gonna be
nicely.
fun. And I hope it's an opportunity where a lot of those bands come to Montana and then keep coming back, because there's a market. I think people really like this style of music, and it's Montana provides a pretty good backdrop for for a little festival or a concert. The
Absolutely,
only
it does.
issue is we're a little far away from other stuff. We're about 10 hours from Denver and 10 hours from Seattle,
Sure.
but it's not too bad. We've just been putting a lot of miles on
I know how
our
that goes.
van.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of putting a lot of miles on, um, the first song on the album, I think kind of fits that bill a little bit. Kind of seemed to me I was talking about constantly being in motion and working every day, kind of chasing your dreams, doing this music thing. Uh,
Yeah.
I thought there was a couple good lyrics in there. One's mentioned, always wanting to do this since a child, and that's kind of something we've talked about. You guys obviously been doing this since you were kids. Um, I guess.
Yeah, Cade wrote that one, and I think, at Fiddle Camp specifically, where like these touring musicians are like almost taking 1 or 2 weeks off of the road to come and sit down with us and teach us. We really started to look up to them and what they were doing, and so I think Cade kind of maybe got some inspiration, from looking at our heroes, and they're sharing their music all over, and that song's kind of a little tribute. I might be putting words in his mouth, but it's kind of a tribute to, where we are doing what we want to be doing, and it's cool, really cool opportunity.
Absolutely. And you guys came together originally in 2021, right?
That's right, yeah.
And so how did kind of everybody else fall into place? I know I read there on the Bluegrass Standard how you and Cade kind of met back up together, but how did everybody else come in and play?
Yeah, so originally the band was Cade and I, and then his sister, Grace Sladen, played fiddle. And we were just kind of getting together, playing some tunes, and our friend Cole Hillman was playing some guitar. Cade even played some dobro there for a while. And we ended up meeting our bass player. I think the infamous String Dusters were playing in Bozeman or out at Pine Creek or somewhere. And Rabi, our bass player, had grown up playing bass in like jazz band and stuff, and then came here to college and hadn't really played. And I had just bought an upright because it was like, oh, I guess maybe I'll play upright and we'll figure out who's gonna play what. But we wanted to have a band. So I just bought an upright and they met and Rabi was like, oh, I play bass. And we kind of were like, oh, you should come over and jam. And so then he came and jammed and we're like, you want to be in the band? And he was like, I need a bass. And so I just sold him that bass that night. And and then Grace ended up moving. And so that's when we got Silas involved. Silas is a little bit of a local legend on the fiddle when it comes to playing with other bands. He's always busy. Everybody's asking, "Can you come play this gig? Can you play this gig?" And so we kind of joke that we stole Silas from his other 12 bands or whatever.
That's
Uh,
pretty awesome.
yeah, and then uh, our banjo player and then our manager and Rabi all played ultimate frisbee at MSU. And which that was a cool community of them because I think our first gig was mostly just ultimate frisbee, like players and stuff that were like, oh, Rabi's in a band, yeah, we'll go. So our first gig was kind of nuts. We are like, why is there people here, this is crazy. But they all met there, and Matt grew up playing like clawhammer banjo and whatnot and was kind of interested in getting into playing scrug style or three finger. And, he came and tried out, and we were like, "Oh, yeah, this could be cool," and then we kinda did another practice, and Matt showed up, and he, like, knew all our tunes top to bottom, and he was ready to roll, and we are like, "Dude, you're in."
Hell yeah.
And now we're just trying to keep up with him because he practices the most out of all of us. We can't keep up.
That's awesome.
But, yeah, and then Max, our manager, we couldn't do this without him. He was a ultimate frisbee and roommates with Rabi in college, and yeah, he kinda just started hanging around when we were doing band stuff and, like, helped sell tickets at the doors to our local shows and was selling merch, and then all of a sudden, it's like he's ordering T-shirts for us and doing emails, and so he's been with us kinda from the beginning too, and he really helps make the gears turn.
That's awesome. I love to hear that it's a well-oiled machine. You guys are a steam locomotive rolling down the tracks, as you'd say on the race.
Yeah.
Seems like the album has a bit of some themes to it. Listening to it top to bottom. Um, one of those, obviously being trains with the title track, but traveling in general. And then I think there's a bit of like, a little sadness to it. There's kind of maybe some stories of, heartbreak or maybe even loss, death, depending on how you interpret it. I know Cade wrote a good chunk of these, I think, looking at the credits, but I know you guys had some parts in there as well. Is there any
Yeah.
particular inspirations that came for the album in general? Like when you guys sat down and try to come up with an album, what's that look like?
This one, kind of the way it shaked out was Cade wrote most of these songs, and I think it was just kind of a little product of what the I guess maybe the change we were all kind of experiencing as the band grew and as we started traveling more and spending more time away from home and loved ones, and I think it's reflected in those songs that Cade wrote. And then the one song I wrote on there, Ramble and Run, a little bit of a heartbreak tune that has there's some truth in that song somewhere about a previous relationship that I won't get too much into detail on, but uh yeah, I think it kind of ended up working out good because Cade's songs, a lot of them are about being away from home, and then that pairs good with heartbreak and loss, and I think that's a couple of the key ingredients to a good bluegrass album. A little bit of trains, a little bit of heartbreak, maybe a little bit of travel.
No,
I'm trying to think what we missed out.
I
Hey,
think
I just decided to throw in a goofy song about a sandwich just to lighten the mood.
Oh yeah, Stir Fried Joe. That's what Silas wrote that one. We wrote
Yep.
that. We Silas and I think we kind of wrote the hook
Yeah.
when we were at Fiddle Camp, and we were assigned the project to play some ripping bluegrass for a corn shucking contest. And we were running down the hill, and Silas had this idea stuck in his head from I should let Silas tell the story about the sandwich, but we were running down the hill singing this it's a stir fry Joe. But Silas is the inventor of the stir fry Joe sandwich.
Okay, and
Yeah.
this is cool because I did, in fact, write a note about Stir Fried Joe. I saw Silas wrote it. Um, it's kicked off pretty hard by the banjo, and then Silas comes in fast as hell, sawing on that fiddle, and then everyone else kind of joins in. Um, you talk about writing, a bit of it there at that fiddle camp. I guess
Yeah.
I'll let Silas tell about the Stir Fry Joe, but also let me know how you go about writing an instrumental. I think it's
Yeah,
always
totally.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wrote it at Fiddle Camp, and I don't know. I guess you could call it the inspiration for it came like in the lunch line. It was like leftover day, and I was kind of late going through the line, so there wasn't much left, and um there was like some hamburger buns and some stir fry left. And so I just put the stir fry right on the hamburger bun, and I walked outside and sat down next to Cade, and he said, "What the hell is that?" And that's when I said, "It's a stir fry Joe, like a sloppy Joe."
Sure.
So that's where it came from, and so that's kind of the tag. Kind of got stuck in our head. Is like, "What the hell is that? What the hell is that? What is that?" It's a stir fry Joe. And so that's where like the original idea came from, and I just kind of like ran with that.
We were like joking around playing that, I think, or Silas was like he learned a little melody to the dumb song we were singing in our head. And
That's
then
cool.
Silas, with his wonderful mind, decided to write a bit of is it crooked?
Yeah, it's kind of
Crooked A part to that melody.
yeah,
So this song was really fun, and maybe it's like type 2 fun where it's fun once we figured it out. But in the moment, we're like trying to learn this song and it's crooked, but now
yeah,
I think it's kind of come to fruition, and it's like, the crowds that we play it for seem to love it, and it gets people moving, and
totally. Yeah, I think I was that week at Fiddle Camp. had been learning a bunch of like kind of weird old time tunes that were crooked and kind of, outside the box, and so I wanted to try to write something like that, like the stuff had been learning, and
That's cool.
yeah.
I appreciated that one. Um, I saw that also. You guys had a co-write on the album. I think there on Suzanne with Harley Allen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so that's an um, older song written by Harley Allen.
Yeah,
Um,
what album is that on?
I think the album's called Suzanne. It's Harley Allen and Mike Lilly.
Yeah,
Okay.
killer album if you're looking for some old stuff to dig into.
Yeah, was that 60s,
Yeah,
70s?
I don't know.
So Suzanne's actually a cover
It is
of
a
that.
cover, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one cover on the album.
Very cool. Okay, I haven't
Yeah.
heard that one. But maybe I have. You know, when I was listening to it, I felt right at home, and that's one of my favorites on there. So maybe I have heard it through the years, and
Yeah.
just didn't click on me. But yeah,
We
that's
had
cool.
a couple people tell us they're like, man, there's something about that song. It's just like we really love it, and I think that's why we decided to throw it on there because we kind of felt this connection to it after learning it as a cover, and yeah, there's something about that song. It's just a good tune.
And it fits the
Yeah.
album very well too. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it fits our group well, and yeah. We
That
liked it so much we named our van Suzanne.
Yeah, our 2011 Chevy Express has the name Suzanne the Van.
Suzanne in the Van. I love that. Yeah, I know, Ryan, you mentioned that Ramble and Run. That was also
Yeah.
another favorite of mine. I think any young man out there going through life can probably relate to a story kind of like that. So,
Yeah, I mean that song. If you listen to the lyrics, it pretty much spells it out for you. But it's kind of I think being a young man, you're trying to figure out the world and you're trying to learn, but maybe you have some pride and stuff and think you have have it all figured out. And I think that song came from experience of, essentially kind of losing the girl and then realizing after the fact, I wasn't as wise as I had, maybe thought I was, and kind of realized the person the person that I had after, and it's kind of too late. And I think that's part of, I mean, it probably applies to anybody, but a young man's life, you're growing up, you think you got it figured out, and then sometimes you get hit with a good realization that, you're maybe not quite as great as you think you are, and you still have stuff to learn. And
sure.
so I think I like to sing like, I see that song not as much as just like a pure heartbreak sad tune. I think there's kind of some hope in that of holding on to people that are important to you in the future when, as you grow up and get wiser.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, it's definitely a tune that young men can relate to. And if you can't relate to it, you're probably a lucky man, then I'd say,
Yeah. No, I think so.
Another two of mine that kind of stuck out. I guess if I had to pick two, I would say my top two songs off the album. Hard to say top one would be "The Ghosts of the Night" and "The Snowy Afternoon."
Yeah.
Funny enough, I think they're both obviously kind of winter songs. "The Ghost of the Night" uh, kind of tells a story of a gentleman succumbing kind of to the snow, and being out in the weather and why he was out there. And we kind of talked about that earlier. You guys mentioned getting some snow. I actually live up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, not too far from the Canadian border, so I know what it's like being up north and winters being long. How do you guys kind of keep things going as a band and as a scene out there in Montana during some of these long winter months?
Yeah, it definitely slow down a little bit out here, but I don't know. Everyone that lives out here, they live here. Most of them live here because they like the snow.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's almost interesting to where, so we live in a real ski town, Bozeman. We've got Big Sky ski area in Bridger Bowl. And so Honestly, like the slow parts of the season are almost kind of like late fall and early spring. But during the ski season, people are bundled up and they're getting outside anyway. And then skiing is kind of a party, and people are, what are we going to do after the ski day? And so there's always something going on. Whether it's a jam or a concert or show to go to, Uh, and yeah, but it does get a little treacherous. The roads get pretty bad. Like traveling out of Bozeman in the winter can be kind of a pain. And we got some good studded snow tires. We had a more mild winter this year, and we were like constantly like, should we take the snow tires off? Should we leave them on? And I don't think we ever made the right choice on it. But
Been there a time or two.
the winter up here, I think, had definitely has effects on like Cade's songwriting and whatnot. Like it when it gets real soft in and it's snowing for days on end, it can be a little gray or dreary almost, and put you into a state of mind where some songs like that might come out. And
Sure.
so I think yeah, Cade wrote both those songs. I'd love to I need to ask him more about, what inspired him, but Cade's kind of crazy with his songwriting. He'll like sit down and spit out a song like he'll just he just has it in his head, and he'll, be running for the guitar to go, "Oh, I gotta get this out and write it down."
I think that's a lot of good songwriters just oftentimes got to get that out of 'em. I, in fact, was the last day or two, I've been slowly picking at this old JD Crow documentary, and his sister was telling stories of them growing up, and it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and he'd say he'd wake up from a dream or from sleeping and have a lick in his head that he had to figure out, and he'd pick his banjo up right away, and his pops would come in there yelling at him. So I think it's cool to have that ability in you. Just whenever you got to get it out, you got to get it out.
Yeah. No, it's really cool to see Cade's, like, writing process. I've only had a couple glimpses into it because it happened so fast with him, and I don't know how long it takes while it's, like, in his head and brewing, but I've got to sit down with him. On our first album, there's a couple songs that I kinda had, like, halfway written, and him and I finished those songs together. It's really fun to see how I don't know, he's got a cool way with words and chords and strings it together. It's something I'm trying to figure out.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys can all able to learn from each other. I think that kind of makes me think of I was reading your guys' just band description overall on the website, and I don't know who wrote that, but it's pretty good, well written. And they mentioned timeless fiddle tunes, which I couldn't agree more. Silas crushing it on that thing. Um, I think you guys do a great job of blending your sounds together. Definitely on this record. I haven't gotten the chance to see you guys live, but I've caught quite a bit of your stuff I see on social medias and things that get posted around online. So I think you guys do a great job of blending that together, and also making sure that everyone kind of gets a spotlight and gets a chance to be seen. Um, how do you kind of make sure you're doing that and how that flow is moving, especially when you're performing a live show?
Yeah. I mean, one cool thing is being in a band, a five-piece band where three of us sing. That keeps things really exciting because we're not all drawn to the same. When we're bringing a cover to the band or writing a new song, I think we have some different styles, and the band, over the last couple of years has really learned to like, if it's a song I sing, we kind of maybe slip into this different kind of groove. And then Cade songs, they kind of have their sound. And Silas sings like a lot of these old bluegrass tunes, like just sings the hell out of them. And so I think that creates a cool space where just having different lead singers, and then the harmonies kind of follow that. And then as far as a band, we kind of just try and play to the song as best we can. And thankfully with bluegrass music, a lot of it is, there's no drummer in bluegrass. And so it gives you the opportunity where you can trade off turns of who's kind of in charge of the rhythm, that train beat, going forward. And that allows other people to step up and fill or take their solo and get the spotlight. And I guess it's something over the last couple of years that has kind of naturally just worked itself out. Like it's not always like, here's a song I wrote, it needs a banjo kick and it needs this. It's like, we'll play a new song and like, oh, let's try a fiddle kick. And it's like, oh, let's try a banjo. And then, Matt Hickey, he'll have the banjo kick kind of figured and we're like, oh yeah, this will be a good one to kind of feature that or, whatever it might be. It's fun just to have the five of us to bounce ideas off and never really say no to an idea unless it doesn't work. We'll kind of give everything a shot before we decide to go a different route.
I definitely appreciate you giving a little insight there. I think it's cool, and I like seeing you guys perform there. I had to even for myself go take a look at the music credits when I was listening to the songs because I could I could hear all three of those voices coming through and was trying to decipher who was who, but looking at the credits there. So getting a chance to talk to you guys is good too. Putting some names to the sounds on there.
Yeah.
I
This
mean,
album's pretty fun. It's like we've a lot of these songs we've been playing live for a while just because we like kind of testing songs out on the road. And a lot of the songs that Cade writes, we're like, dude, we got to play that. Like he's got a new song that I'm guessing will make it on the third album. Hopefully we can get around to recording that. But like every time we're writing a set list, I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to play that one again. I like that song. So it's fun to like just just play these songs and get to know them, and then, yeah, getting in the studio and getting a chance to record them was was a real treat.
that being said, with the album, how did you guys come about titling it Portland Rose? I know, Portland Rose is an old passenger train that used to run across your guys' kind of neck of the woods out there. And I think personally, listening to the record, it almost makes you feel like you're riding a train in some kind of way. Kind of takes you to the mountaintops with like there's some speedy jams in there, and it reaches some high crescendos, and then you kind of come back down. I guess you say the river valley, and it's like you got Silas just drawing that fiddle out, making it cry, and some of those emotional lyrics.
Yeah. I think I don't know if I can say it better than what you just did, but I think we kind of whether it was subconsciously or, actually talking about it, we kinda thought, like, if you looked at, like, the theme of the whole album and kinda that idea, there's a lot of that train and travel and whatnot, and so I think even if you look at just Portland Rose, that song, it almost pulls you in and out of that kinda same feeling like you were talking about, and it kinda I don't know, we thought it rolled off the tongue, and we were excited about, having our friend Sarah make the art for it, and we just thought it was kind of a good fit overall for the the general vibe that the album was kinda that we got. I think we hadn't decided until we'd recorded all of it, and then once it was recorded, we were kinda in there, we're like, "Yeah, I think this is probably the only way we could." I think that was, like, the only name we really were like, "Oh, yeah, that's it."
Now, does the Portland Rose, have anything historical kind of local to you guys, or is it something you've seen along the road? And
I think Cade looked it up and was, like, telling the band about it.
okay,
The closest, I guess, connection directly to the band is our banjo player, Matt, grew up, in Portland, and so that was kind of a fun little tie. We were actually just playing in Portland last weekend, and we were walking over to a coffee shop, and there was, like, I think it was, like, kind of a manhole cover, like a yeah, it was like the manhole cover of the in the middle of the street, and it had Portland Rose on it and, like, the flowers there, and then we look up and the neighbors out in their front yard, they've got these Portland roses growing.
that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, it was just I think ties into Hickey a little bit, and then Cade's curiosity for like those old trains, and
Cool.
you
Yeah.
know, I think he was maybe out there just looking for some inspiration on. It is kind of in our neck of the woods, and it is deal. We like playing songs about trains, and that falls a lot into bluegrass. And so I think Cade's curiosity kind of sparked it, and then that song came out of that and turned into the album as well.
No, that's awesome. I think it fits it well. I mean, I know I got to looking up what exactly the Portland Rose looked like, and they had some beautiful artwork on that old train, and yeah,
Yeah.
fits the beautifulness of the album. That's for sure. Now, if I'm not mistaken, did I read somewhere that um that the inspiration for the name of the band that came from Cade and his family?
Yeah, Cade grew up outside of Missoula a little ways on the Blackfoot River, and his dad's a fly fishing guide, and Cade spent like countless hours fishing those creeks and rivers surrounding him. And the North Fork of the Blackfoot, I think, is a really special spot to Cade and his family, and yeah, there's this fly fishing lodge up there when you're driving kind of out in the sticks, and there's this big sign that says the North Fork Crossing right before you go over a bridge. And yeah, Cade brought that to the band. We were wondering what we were gonna be.
I like that. That's a good homage to the family and keeping it local there. It rolls off the tongue too. I mean, it fits and it works well. You guys did good there.
Yeah, we like it. It's like I think it's kind of one of the things where sometimes it gets like mispronounced or people North Folk or whatever, but people are always asking like what river it's about or where it came from, and a lot of like local people they'll just call us North Fork, which is kind of fun, and yeah, we've ended up really liking the name.
Heck yeah, that's cool. I uh I had written down here. I want to throw it back to earlier in the conversation we were talking about Silas and going up to Calvin's camp. I had through my research, I seen that Calvin actually wrote a song for you,
He
and
did, yeah.
I was curious if you guys ever break that out anytime.
We don't, but now you say that, we really ought to play that one.
That's a good one. You want to tell me about it?
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, so I don't know, yeah, I grew up going there, and then um when I was younger, had ended up having some health issues, and wasn't able to make it to camp for a couple years. And so he wrote me that tune, and I and he kind of surprised me with it. Um, or I went up to like see a concert, and he invited a bunch of my friends from the fiddle camp up on stage with him, and they all played it for me. It was very special.
Is that the one that he did for like I don't know if it was a benefit, but I saw some videos online of a bunch of young kids up there playing it with him. I thought that might be the one.
Yeah, I think that was the show. That there's a YouTube video of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool, man.
Silas lore, I don't even know.
You got to dig in, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a cool tune too. Yeah, Calvin's an amazing fiddle. He's written like hundreds of fiddle tunes. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, yeah, that guy. I've seen his name on a lot of credits in a lot of places. So
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
that's awesome.
But
That
yeah, his playing definitely had a huge impact on me, and was kind of he was one of the first guys like that I like got really into, and was like took a deep dive kind of into his playing, and got me really excited about being a fiddle player. And
heck yeah,
so
man.
yeah,
God, we got guys like that to look up to. You know,
absolutely.
on that thought, we talked a little bit about the traditional scene earlier. Um, I know you talked about the Montana fiddle camp there. Um, I think right now is important as ever to kind of shine some light on that traditional grass scene a little bit more. That's something I've been trying to do on my site as well, and is including some of them those guys. It seems like there's a lot of camps going on and a lot of festivals and even small shows that are going on in the trad grass scene that don't really I feel like get heard or talked about or seen much by the general public. And maybe that's due to it not necessarily being the hottest thing right now and when you're talking about the bluegrass world. But that being said, traditional music is where all of this came from. Is there anything else kind of throughout the years or maybe going on right now, even that in the traditional world camps or anything like that that you guys are aware of or a part of?
Like what, like winter pick and winter grass
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, the
times. Is that what it is?
hard times, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
the big one for us is the Montana Fiddle Camp. And that's been cool for us just because we grew up, as kids there, and kinda now we get to be the older, more seasoned musicians kinda trying to inspire the kids hopefully, and, so that's cool. Yeah, we, last year we went to Wintergrass out in Seattle,
Okay.
um, and that's a pretty cool festival, definitely more trad leaning, um, and we weren't playing the festival, but we were helping our friend host the Montana Hospitality Suite, like, kinda jam room. So that was a cool festival. Lots of people come from all over and play
Yeah.
until late in the night in the hallways, and
That's cool. That one just made my radars recently too while doing all of this. I
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
heard
a
of
good
that
one.
one.
yeah,
What's the one they do at Larry Barnwell's up there?
like, yeah, the Hard Times
Hard
Yep.
Times.
in Hamilton, Montana.
Yeah, that's like there's some cool little festivals like that around Montana where it's just the sound guy's got it pretty easy. He plugs in a condenser mic and calls it a day, and it's just kind of trad bluegrass only.
Sure.
I think you might even got to be careful when you're playing Southern flavor to not play the major two chord. It's too wild for them.
That's funny.
And we last year we went and played this in this tiny town in Wyoming, the Warland Barbecue and Bluegrass Festival. But there's stuff like that where it's just like, you're playing around the can and we just kind of dive a little deeper into our trad songs and whatnot, play a lot of fiddle tunes and old time and yeah, I think if there's people out there that are at all curious about more where this music came from, the camps and the smaller festivals are a really cool place to go and see it. Because those small festivals, the concerts cool, but almost everybody's going there for the late night picks.
Absolutely.
And the camp's the same way. You get a lot out of the classes at the camp, but you almost get more when you might be sitting next to Tim O'Brien singing a song, and it's like, you'll learn more from 5 minutes of that than you do, trying to listen to anything on your phone or whatever. So it's cool if
Absolutely.
you get a bunch of older. Bluegrass is a cool community where I feel like, and I guess I can't speak to it because I don't know if there is ego in other styles of music, but I feel like there's a lot of real welcoming, themes and stuff to bluegrass music. You can hop in a jam, you can learn, you can just, everybody's in it together, and like Sierra Hull and Billy Strings and Tim O'Brien, they all started the same way any of us do, picking up an instrument and trying to learn
And
Andrew the Baker.
going to their local jams and festivals, and yeah.
I think, yeah, now more than ever, we need that too, is being there for one another and creating a small community and keeping that ball rolling. I couldn't agree more. I feel very welcomed in most places in the bluegrass scene and feel like, most people that are actually into it and love it and care about it, they just want to keep the tradition alive. So they can't do that without, passing it on and being there for other people to learn from them and so on. I think it is a cool thing, like you said, I can't speak on it as well, but I think it is different than other genres of music, how, um, there's so many covers, if you look at, maybe rock and roll and some of that, there's a bit of covers, but if we get outside of this and get into, maybe let's just say rap music or something like that. There's not a lot of this community and, someone doing someone else's songs, right? So I think it is a different
Yeah.
kind of style of music and playing and ultimately, like we've been talking about, it's more traditional. It's how they did it years ago, and so that's how they're going to keep doing it while mixing in these new flares that keep coming about.
Yeah, I think, like, if you look at jazz music, there's, like, a lot of that tradition of songs being passed around and stuff, but I think the cool thing that bluegrass has that maybe jazz doesn't, and I'm not entirely sure, but, those jazz songs, they're chordy as hell and the melodies are hard, and it's not as approachable as, you know, playing a Larry Sparks tune. If you know your basic cowboy chord shapes on guitar, you can kind of hop in a jam. Your right hand might not be able to keep up yet, but you can start figuring it out pretty young, and like when I was a kid at fiddle camp, I was playing upright bass, and it was like, you kinda learn to use your ear and maybe see how far the guitar player puts his capo up for the next song and figure out where you're at, and it was a good way to just learn those songs, and it's approachable, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Absolutely.
and it's like, yeah, it's just everybody's there for the same reason, they like playing those songs and singing them, and
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you mentioned being young and doing it and then seeing these youngsters coming up nowadays and doing it. It's like uh, you know, if you can learn your basics, you can fit into that circle and then, throughout the years you'll learn the chops and you'll figure out what works and where you fit in. And um I think it's good that, you guys are out here moving on and passing it on to the next generation. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you guys?
I'm 28. I'm the oldest one in the band.
Okay.
I'm 24. And Cade, our guitar player, he's the youngest. He's 23.
Okay. Nice. I thought so.
And then me and Matt and Max, they're all 26 or 27.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we
So
we
yeah,
grew.
we're kind of, like out of college age, and it's a fun spot to be.
That's awesome. I'm also 25, so I think we're kind of right around that same demographic. We probably grew up on some of the same stuff. Um,
Oh yeah.
and speaking of younger, I saw that you had had Ryan and Silas both, I believe, were featured on Jam Pokes album that they put out on the
Oh
song
yeah.
Winterbird.
Yeah. Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell me about that. That's a hell of a song.
that was cool. I had no idea what to expect, but those kids are awesome. They're like I think they're very Bozeman band if you think about it. They're gonna try and make it on time to their gig, but they're going out to go ski in like 15 miles in the back country before the gig. So they're showing up and they're changing out of their ski boots into their skate shoes or whatever. They're yeah, that's just like a good group of like they're college age kids, and, we've kinda got the opportunity, like, have them open up for us, um, before. We have a show, it's not announced yet, but I think we're gonna get those boys there opening up, so it's cool to, like, when we start getting some bigger shows in a similar way that, like, bands like Laney Lou and the Bird Dogs and The Last Rebel and the Kitchen Dwellers kinda took us under their wing and showed us the ropes a little bit of, like, what it's like, going to play a real gig and how to be an opener and how to do a sound check even. I feel like we were like figuring all this stuff out. And it's been cool. The Jam Poke boys, they're totally dialed and are good at what they do. But when we first met them, they're just getting started out and we're like, oh man, these guys are cool. They're jammy, people are super into it. And so when they texted us and they're like, "We're recording down at Jake Fleming's. You guys want to come track a song?" And we just kind of showed up and we had heard the song a little bit and we're like, "Whoa, dude, this is really cool." And we just kind of hung out and tried to make it work as we were like learning this tune and bouncing ideas off each other.
So,
But
did you 2, just come in, they already had the song written, and you kind of worked your guys' parts into it?
Yeah, they had everything else recorded.
I
They
think
just
yeah,
kinda
they at
left.
least had like the main bones of it,
Yeah,
like keys and drums and guitar, and there's some space in that song, that kind of open jam that was like they were wanted to have us on it. So that was really fun. And they're one of many, younger bands, just like kind of we were, not very long ago. And those guys are crushing it. They're out touring on the road, playing shows in Colorado and stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think. That was cool. It was just kind of like a little one-off deal, and it was fun to be a part of.
Yeah, it was a great sound, you know. I think they have a little bit of percussion over there. And I liked, the way that mixed in with the string music. Really kind of worked well. And I think you and Silas were there coming in on that solo after verse one, working together. That sounded pretty spectacular. It's cool that you're able to work with other musicians locally there, older and younger than you. Um,
Yeah, for sure. No, that was a very fun project.
Yeah, it's fun the opportunity just living in a town like Bozeman, and I think I imagine you can kind of find it anywhere, but once you kind of start meeting the right people, and you realize that there's a lot of people making music and a lot of people writing songs, and yeah, it's always fun to like get to dip our toes into a different genre a little bit. And Silas and I, we play some shows with like more country bands that do like a lot of 90s country covers, and that's just as fun as hopping in with the Jam Poke Boys. And like it kind of keeps you on your toes, where you're trying to figure out how to serve the song and create some good music.
Sure, then you can take some of those inspirations back with you to your own band and your own shows. And
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Speaking of other things, well, I saw that you guys have a show coming up in August with Sam Walker from Clay Street.
Oh,
Yeah, we
Um,
love Santa.
yeah, personally, I love that guy. I think he has one of my favorite voices coming up in the scene right now. Um,
Voice of an angel.
Yeah, truly. I mean, he gets high, he gets low, he goes wherever he needs to be. I think that those boys are creating a cool sound too. I was talking to somebody the other day. I think it was Matt over at Dome Swap actually, and we were talking about them. And they kind of give you a feel of maybe like early 2000s Steel Drivers, or a little bit more like Americana with the bluegrass and influence. Um,
yeah.
I know I did a little bit of digging into those guys, and I actually got to catch them a few weeks back. But super excited to see you guys having Sam on a bill. I guess, how did you guys come together, and what brought this idea to life? I think it's a good one.
Yeah, we met the Clay Street unit, was it last year or the year
I
before?
think it was last year. I can't remember. It might have
Or
been
no,
2 years ago.
2 years, yeah, I think 2 years ago at, that Creekside Festival that we're hosting this year.
Nice.
They were playing and I don't know, it's a fun festival because it's lots of bands coming together and picking after the late night and everything, and so we ended up hanging out with all those guys till
Yeah, I
the
think
early
Skip
hours
and
of the
Skip
morning.
and I, maybe like Jake Simpson, uh, from the Little Smokies. Now Jake's playing with like Dave Matthews Band and stuff. I think we stayed up like till like the sun was coming up, just playing songs and hanging out. But it's been really fun to get to know Sam and his band. I Last year when Clay Street came to Pine Creek Lodge, um, Ryan Acker from The Last Rebel and I opened up for that for them, and that was really fun. And then we went and hopped in and played a couple songs with them. Silas and I have sat in with Clay Street before. But yeah, I think if you're looking at younger bands out there that are just crushing, it's like Sam and his voice just kind of supported by a really great band. It's like they've got all the ingredients to throw in a good show. And so it's been really fun to get to know Sam, and stoked to have him on a bill. I just shot him a text. I was like, "Yo, are you free this date?" And he was like, "I think I am. What's up?" And I was like, "Dude, would you wanna like open up for us and then come play some songs and sit in?" And he was stoked. So it's fun to, you know, for us, you see a band like Clay Street that's just like blowing up and crushing it. It's cool to be friends with them and just get the opportunity to make some good music with them.
Absolutely, they're on a great trajectory. So is the plan to have Sam kind of do a solo set before you guys then?
I think that is the plan. I'm not sure. He, I guess maybe there's a chance he would do like a duo or a trio, but I think right now the plan he'll probably do a solo set, and then I'm sure we'll have to get him up to sing and pick a couple.
Heck yeah, absolutely. That's gonna be awesome. Well, I hope you guys, really kill it out there, and that'll be in closer to the end of the summer. There's a lot of roads between here and then.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna be busy. We should be pretty warmed up for that one. That'll
Heck
be
yeah,
fun at Globe Hall in Denver.
and that's a good, nice sized venue too. So it's nice to see you guys, fitting in some places like that.
Yeah, it's great. It'll be our second time there. We opened up for a band there one night, or I guess it was maybe kind of a split
Mhm.
co-bill, and we had like the first slot and had a great show there. And there's the room was full, and hopefully we can do it again and get some people out.
That's awesome, guys. I look forward to seeing all this goodness from that. That'll be good. Um, Kind of wind it up here. Don't want to talk your guys' ear off too long. I know the record just came out a few weeks ago. It hasn't even been a month yet, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I guess what do you guys have in store, kind of for the year? Maybe that we haven't talked about anything to go along with the album, or anything you're kind of excited about.
Yeah, I mean, we have well, I guess we have our album release party coming
Okay.
up soon. That's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, it's
When
May 29th, so like just a little over a week, and we're doing that at Pine Creek Lodge. We normally do a show like a headlining show there, kind of towards the beginning of the summer, and then that sets us up to go back and play at Creekside. That's gonna be really fun. What else do we got coming
We have
up?
some fun festivals, some around Montana.
Playing the Zootown Music Festival in Missoula, Montana. And then last year we did they do a little contest at Red Ants Pants, and everybody going to the festival gets like two little tickets, and then there's between the headlining acts there's a side stage, and I think we played an hour set, um and then it's like crowd voted, and we ended up getting the most votes there, and so we're opening up the festival this year, so that'll be really fun. That's a killer vibe.
That's a hard-earned opportunity.
Ricky Skaggs is headlining this year, so we're pretty thrilled to get to see him.
Yeah, that's a good bill. Another one that I hadn't heard of in years previous until starting my website and building this calendar out that I've done. Um, it's great to see. That's kind of one I think that maybe is a little bit more on the traditional leaning side too. But hats off to you guys for earning that spot over there and winning the crowd over.
Nice, yeah,
Yeah, we're pretty thankful to anywhere you go where your music's well received and you can see people, even just bringing them a couple songs that they might take home and enjoy, or something to, anytime you play a song and people are into it, it means something to them, and it's huge for us to get to go play for people who want to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys making it good music. I always say it wouldn't be a good world if there wasn't good music to go with it. So, that being said, I hope that people get out there and check your guys' shows out. And hopefully, us having this conversation here today will, bring some more listeners over there and turn some new ears and eyes onto you guys. I know I was turned on last year or so when you guys did your first collaboration with Dome Swap, and have been a fan since then. So I've already I've already wore this album out pretty good preparing to chat with you guys today, and
Nice.
I'll be continuing to listen to it. So um,
Well, thanks so much for being a listener and a fan and giving us the opportunity to come chat with you for a little while. This means a lot to us, and it's cool to see. Yeah, like you said, I hope maybe somebody who hasn't heard us before maybe wants to check us out, and if we're playing somewhere close to them, that they come on out and hang out, and we can shake their hand and play them some tunes.
Heck yeah. Well, I've got you guys docked up on my calendar, so if they check it out, they'll see your whole tour schedule there.
Very
Um,
cool.
so
Where
yeah,
do we find you on that? Where is that?
yeah. So it's just
On your
at
website?
bluegrassroadshow.com. Yeah. Um,
Cool.
I've been kind of in the process of launching the actual website on its own platform by itself and putting everything on one place. I've kind of had it spread out and been in the email newsletter phase, and then playing the kind of social media aspect of it and doing that way. But I've had this calendar built out for a while, and I've figured out how to incorporate it actually onto a website and make it pretty functional. So yeah, you can check
Cool.
that out there. I'm getting ready to. I'll be launching, kind of posting more about the website and letting people know that it's a thing here this month. I really just got it off of the ground, but I look forward. You guys are going to be one of the first official interviews for the new website. So,
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm excited to check it out.
yeah, I'm super appreciated for you guys just giving me the opportunity and giving me an hour or so of your time. I know time is valuable these days, and I genuinely very very much appreciate it. And I hope our paths will cross one of these days.
Yeah, that would be
absolutely.
awesome. We'll have to pick some tunes.
Yeah, we're heading out kind of your neck of the woods. I guess the closest we've been for Blue Ox.
Yeah, you guys are coming out this summer for that, right?
Yeah, so that'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I've got planned that weekend. I was gonna try to make it to a day or two of that, so hopefully I'll see you guys out there. We've got
Yeah.
Larry Sparks coming up to a local bluegrass festival here that
Oh,
Thursday before.
you're not gonna want to miss that.
Yeah, so I think I'm on the docket to see him, but then probably gonna bust over to Blue Ox for a day or two if possible. So hopefully things line up and we see you guys over there. But
That would be
um,
awesome.
Yeah, and we definitely want to start hitting the Midwest more. So
yeah, and if you
we'll get
never
back out there.
ever need anything pointed in the right direction, I know I spoke with your manager Max there. But if you guys ever need a hand or putting the bug in the ear or local venues, that kind of thing, feel free to reach out. We've got a good little scene going on here, kind of in the Midwest. I'd say like as a whole, it's kind of like Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, kind of fit all in this little bubble of bluegrass, and there's a lot of cool bands coming up right now out of here, but it's always nice to get some newcomers out here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'd love to get out there.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I will definitely be in contact with you, as I post this up, and if I got any more questions, I'll be sure to reach out to you, Silas.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but no, it's been a pleasure speaking with you guys, and the amount of knowledge and information you dropped on me today has been great. So now I got to put it all together.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. Looking forward to checking out your stuff, and hopefully, yeah, cross paths soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. It's a small world in this little bluegrass scene, so
That is.
I guarantee we will here soon.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate you guys very much, and we'll talk soon.
All right,
Alright,
talk to you.
sounds good.
Thank you guys. Have a blessed evening.
Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Bluegrass Roadshow's Talk Show. I truly appreciate you sticking around and making it to the end here. I want to thank Ryan and Silas both for taking the time out of their busy schedules to sit down and have a conversation with me, as well as the rest of their band for making such a fantastic album. Also, a special shout out goes to their manager Max for connecting the dots between Silas and I. Teamwork always makes the dream work. Last but not least, I have to thank the man behind the scenes, Old Sundog. If it wasn't for him, none of this would be possible. So if you haven't already, go back and check out episode 0, where he and I sit down and discuss what exactly Bluegrass Roadshow is, how it came to life, and where it's headed. This has been your host, Hunter Wiseman, speaking, saying best of luck and health to you. If the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll see you before long.